So, a few months back we were having this big client meeting over Zoom. I log in, check my hair, check my mic, everything seems fine. About 10 minutes in, I notice the client is trying really hard not to laugh whenever I talk. I assume I've got something on my face. Nope. My coworker messages me privately. Dude, why are you a potato? Turns out my kid had been using my laptop earlier and left a Zoom filter on. So I had been presenting a full marketing strategy as a very serious, very confident talking potato with glasses. When I finally figured it out and switched back, the client said, "Honestly, we kind of liked Potato Guy better." So, I work in a pretty chill office and I usually bring my lunch. Last week, I had a salad in one of those plastic containers. You know, the ones that claim to be microwave safe. I put it in the microwave, hit 2 minutes, and walked away. Suddenly, we all hear this loud bang. The microwave literally shook. People came running from down the hall. Turns out, the dressing container inside the salad had built up pressure and exploded. When I opened the microwave, it looked like someone had committed lettuce-based homicide. Bits of spinach were plastered to the walls, feta cheese stuck to the ceiling, and worst of all, vinaigrette dripped down like some kind of horror movie. My boss walked in right as I was wiping balsamic vinegar off my glasses. He just sighed and said, "Guess we're ordering out today." The office now calls me the salad bomber. At my old job, I had this giant travel mug I treated like a trophy. One morning, I set it on my desk while reaching for the phone. Somehow, I hit it just right and the mug tipped over. The coffee didn't just spill. It went full Niagara Falls over my keyboard, dripped through to the wiring underneath, and shorted out my mouse. In my panic, I jumped up, knocking my headset cord, which yanked my desk phone off its cradle. The falling phone smacked the power strip, killing the internet for the entire office floor. Everyone's work froze. People started shouting. My boss poked his head out of his office like, "Did you just shut down the internet with a latte?" They still call me the human surge protector. So, our office printer is older than me. It jams if you look at it funny. One day I had to print like 80 pages for a meeting. Of course, the printer stops after page 7 and flashes the dreaded paper jam. I open it up, pull out the tray, remove a page. Nope, still jammed. I open another panel, yank out another page. Still jammed. By the end of it, I'm basically performing open heart surgery on this machine, covered in toner. Out of pure frustration, I mutter, "You win this time, you little piece of junk." Right as I said that, the printer started printing perfectly again, like it had been messing with me the whole time. My coworker witnessed the whole thing and now swears the printer only responds to verbal threats. So now, whenever anyone has trouble, they call me over to intimidate it. I just cross my arms and say, "Behave." Works every time. I work in a pretty standard office with those swivel chairs on wheels. One morning, I'm walking around to grab something from a coworker's desk while holding a stack of papers. I casually sit back down, and the chair decides it's done with me. Collapsed completely. I hit the floor, papers flying everywhere, and somehow my chair rolled across the room like a rogue curling stone, hitting the water cooler just enough to make a tiny splash on the floor. Everyone stared in silence. Then my boss goes, dead serious, "Guess the chair finally quit before you did." I've since been dubbed Chair Whisperer, and yes, I now check my chair for signs of rebellion every morning. So, I'm relatively new at my job and still learning the ropes. One morning, I meant to email my friend in HR about how weird the new CEO's tie looked. I typed, "Seriously, that tie is tragic. Who approved this?" I hit send, and immediately realized I had clicked reply all instead of just her. Within 30 seconds, I had replies from the CEO, 3 managers, and literally half the office, ranging from to, "I actually kind of agree." I spent the next hour apologizing, and the best part? The CEO started wearing slightly less tragic ties after that. Now, everyone reminds me whenever someone sends a questionable outfit email, reply all first, just in case. I work in a small office where we keep a communal snack drawer. One day, I bought a pack of cookies and left them there. When I went back an hour later, half were gone. I started a full-scale investigation. Fingerprints on wrappers, staking out the break room, even setting up a fake snack with a note. I saw nothing. The culprit? Our office cat? Or at least that's what someone tried to convince me. Turns out, my coworker had been stealthily eating cookies and blaming it on me, claiming it was office folklore. By the end of the day, I was called the cookie detective, and somehow HR made a report on the snack theft incident of 2025. Our office scheduled a fire drill last week, which is usually just an excuse to stand outside awkwardly and complain about the cold. This time, the alarm went off, and, of course, everyone ignored it for the first 30 seconds because, it's probably nothing. Then the sprinklers accidentally turned on. Suddenly, half the office was soaked, papers floating like tiny sad boats, and my laptop was basically doing its best impression of a water park ride. I yelled, sarcastically, "Great! I always wanted my career to go down in flames." Literally. The boss just looked at us all dripping wet and said, "Well, at least we know the fire system works." In a totally destructive way. Now, whenever someone mentions a fire drill, we all smirk and bring umbrellas. So, one Monday I decide I'm going to be super healthy and bring a homemade green smoothie to work. Kale, spinach, a hint of apple. Basically, liquid regret in a cup. I take one sip at my desk and immediately realize I misjudged the power of raw kale. My eyes water. I cough like I'm auditioning for a horror movie and somehow launch the smoothie across the keyboard. My coworkers stare. I wipe it off, dripping with green sludge, and joke, "Don't worry. This is just me feeding the computer so it'll work harder today." The IT guy later told me my keyboard had never felt such betrayal. Now, every time someone brings kale to the office, they get the look of fear and pity from me. I joined a new company and was still figuring out the calendar system. One morning, I scheduled a team sync for 8 a.m., but accidentally invited the entire company, including people in other time zones. When I showed up, I was alone in the conference room. 5 minutes later, an army of confused coworkers started trickling in via Zoom, all staring like I was summoning a corporate ghost. I tried to play it cool. Ah yes, the phantom meeting. Very exclusive. You're all very lucky to witness it. The CEO jokingly announced that the meeting had been so productive, it scared off productivity forever. From that day on, my calendar invites are feared and revered like some kind of office horror legend. So, our office has a tiny elevator that fits. Maybe 4 people if you're feeling generous. One morning, I was alone in it, singing along to a podcast because apparently, I'm a Broadway star in my own mind. The elevator stopped suddenly between floors. Panic? Nah. Just me awkwardly hitting buttons while still belting out show tunes for one. Eventually, the doors opened, and my coworker, who had been stuck behind the elevator wall in a maintenance closet, don't ask, walks out. Deadpan, he says, "I never knew death could sound like that." Now, whenever anyone hears music coming from the elevator, they immediately assume someone is either having a breakdown or auditioning for Hamilton. We have a tiny office plant that everyone pretends to care about. One day, I absent-mindedly watered it, a little too enthusiastically. By the end of the day, the poor thing was drowning in its own soil, leaves wilting like it had just watched a horror movie. My coworker gasped, "You've killed it." I shrugged and said, "Relax, it had a long life. In plant years, it's basically a senior citizen." We held a tiny, sarcastic funeral at lunch, complete with a paperclip cross. The office now refers to me as the Grim Reaper of foliage, and every new plant gets a helmet of warning. Beware the green thumb of doom. One day, I decided to be helpful and leave reminders for everyone on their desks with sticky notes. Simple, right? Just a few polite messages like, "Don't forget the TPS report." Fast forward 2 hours. A coworker sneezes near my desk, and suddenly, all 200 sticky notes I'd put up over the week went flying. They stuck to monitors, keyboards, and somehow my face. People were stepping over sticky notes like landmines. I quipped, "Congratulations, team. Welcome to Sticky Note Survival 2025. HR later called it a minor office incident, which is corporate speak for, "This guy almost caused a paper cut apocalypse." Our office chairs have these weird adjustable levers. One day, I tried to lower mine while leaning back, and instead of a smooth descent, it launched me backward like a medieval catapult. I crashed into a coworker's desk, sending their coffee flying like a caffeinated geyser. They looked at me, drenched, and said deadpan, "Well, at least you're committed to team building." Now, every chair in the office is referred to as a potential murder weapon, and my nickname is officially Captain Catapult. One morning, I went to grab my stapler, and it was gone. Not misplaced, gone. I searched my desk, the drawers, the office supply closet, even under the break room fridge. Nothing. I sent a dramatic email to the whole office. Stapler has been abducted. Suspects include coworkers, aliens, or dark magic. 10 minutes later, someone peeked over my cubicle and said, "Dead serious. It's been in the fridge since yesterday. You wanted cold coffee, remember?" Now, every time something disappears, the office whispers, "Better check the fridge," or the Bermuda Triangle, or both.